Welcome everyone to the council meeting for the 11th of June 2020, which I now declare open. Before I begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the land on which Moonee Valley is located, that of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So although it's not possible for members of the public to join us in person tonight, our meetings do remain open, and I'm glad that some people are watching us live streaming via the website and on YouTube. So as you've probably figured, it's a Thursday night and it's not a normal council meeting tonight. Under our meeting procedure protocol, we are required to give at least 7 days public notice of this date, time and place of the meeting, unless urgent or extraordinary circumstances prevent this. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to consider a funding application to the state government that needs to be submitted next week. So we will record that the urgency of this matter meant that the required 7 days notice unfortunately could not be given. Now, as everyone can see, we've got a full suite of councillors and I don't have any apologies for tonight, and we don't have any minutes to confirm. I will ask councillors if there's anyone who'd like to declare a conflict of interest on the matter for tonight. No? We're obviously still following the same meeting protocol as we have to, and there's no presentations, no petitions, joint letters, no public questions, and no reports from the special committee. So I will head to item 10, which is reports, titled Community Sports Infrastructure Stimulus Programs. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation as the motion plus add a paragraph D. So I'll read the paragraph D, assuming that everybody else has got the rest of the motion in front of them. So D would read, if either of the grants are successful, the amount of the grants received be reallocated to the Capital Works budget review in January 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Marshall. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak on the item?
On Tuesday evening, Council considered an urgency motion that was presented by Councillor Sharp in respect of the community sports infrastructure stimulus program that had been announced only a few days beforehand by the Victorian government. And Councillor Sharp should be commended for having raised that with us, and for the alacrity also that has been shown by our officers in examining both the qualifications required for projects and whether this council had any that did meet the requirements for funding under that infrastructure program. So on Tuesday night, we nominated the J.A. Fullerton Pavilion to be our priority area. However, council on consideration since then has looked very much at the Flemington Community Centre and the sports hub component of that centre. We have, since the budget in 2019, have consistently said that this is a priority project for the City of Moonee Valley, and that and it would be one of our priority advocacy areas. This project funding that has been made available by the government allows us to actually take part of the overall hub project and package it up so that we can comply within the scope of the funding that's available. It's an expensive project. There's a lot to be done. There is the actual physical building that works that have got to happen, but there are any number of other aspects to this work that has to fall into place as well. There are all the sports ovals, there's the lighting of them, there's some level of work that needs to be done in restructuring of both the tennis courts that exist there, and the biggest priority that was given to this council by young people on that on the Flemington estate was that they needed somewhere to play basketball. So this becomes the package. And while it'll be stepped out as a project over a couple of years, we can certainly, and this is the advice that we've provided to SRV, we can certainly deliver the project as shovel ready right from the beginning, because there are any number of parts of this project that can start immediately. In particular, we already have design specs and the requirements well known to this council for doing the playing fields, for doing lighting, and for doing some of that minor construction work that's associated with getting the project up and running. There will be a level of design and construct that will go concurrently with this, but we're very confident that we can put this through. The final aspect of this proposal is that there will be a saving to council, and that part D that was put up as the amendment is critical, so that it can come back what money was allocated or what money has been made available through the project, and the offset for council is that we'll be able to bring that back into our review of the budget in January next year, presumably with a view to looking at it as funding other capital works or being able to bring other capital works online. And we also know that there are a number of those capital works that were either suspended, put off, or put in the cooler altogether because of the very, very difficult budget phase that we're in due to COVID-19 and the subsequent effects that will have on our budget. So if we're successful with 2 projects, it would be Christmas on a stick. If we can get one up, the J.A. Fullerton one, which is our priority, great. And if we can get something going for the Flemington Community Hub, which is a massive $20 million project, and get government input into that, and we're only paying 10%, it seems to me that we should be applauding this rather than suggesting that we do nothing. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Marshall.
Jim's been, Councillor Cusack, I should say, has been very comprehensive in what he has said. I'd also like to echo what he said in relation to Councillor Sharp for bringing that matter of urgent business, which has really led us to where we are now. So I certainly thank you for that. And it has been good that officers have, in the interim period, looked and determined that this project, which is a very significant project, is eligible and fits the grant criteria. Hopefully we'll be successful. There's a lot to be said, and there are a lot of benefits of the project, not just in relation to the actual build itself, but those employment opportunities and a whole range of other things that could go along with it. So to me, it's a very positive sell. Certainly, obviously, J.A. Fullerton is absolutely something that we're committed to. So that will be going up too. And it is important to note these are projects that are in our capital works agenda, and that there is funding for them. So to the extent that we were successful, we could obviously reallocate that money accordingly. And I think we do need to, just without wanting to be the Grinch, we need to be mindful too that I think it's up to 90%. So there is a possibility that we might only get a much smaller component. There's a possibility we might get nothing. But if we were to get a much smaller component, the reality is that we still have budgetary funding there for these projects so that they can proceed without us having to turn around and say, oh, well, we're going to have to knock off that. So I think that's probably another important point. And look, fingers crossed that it is the 90%.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Would any other councillor like to speak on this item? Councillor Nation.
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully my audio holds up. And I do also want to recognise the Gundibara people, who were the traditional owners of the land that I'm currently on now. So we need to recognise all the traditional owners wherever we may be. I'm more than happy to support this motion, and I don't need to harp on about how important the Flemington Hub is going to be for so many members of our community. And the recent, the past few months have only made that ever more evident that people need support, people need a centre to congregate at, people need services down in the southern end of our municipality. So I think this is a fantastic application, or a fantastic project to add with Fullerton, which we obviously resolved on Tuesday night. And I think that both these projects are projects that have plenty of merit, and hopefully those that are assessing the grants, and I said it on Tuesday, hopefully everything gets assessed on merit, because these are both two very worthy projects. And when any level of government is willing to partner with you, we have to obviously try to chase that money. So I commend Councillor Sharp on putting the urgent business through on Tuesday night, and hopefully the fact that we're doing this as well via a council motion again shows the government that we are a united group, and these are projects that really do matter for our council. So more than happy to support this motion, and hopefully we are a united front, and we're successful with these grant applications.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak on this motion? Councillor Sorais. Sorry, Councillor Sorais, your microphone needs to be turned on.
Thank you. Just basically, it's probably more a question or clarification. I can't see anything in the report. I might have overlooked it as to when. I know that the applications have to be in immediately, but when we will be notified about the outcome of those applications. Perhaps one of you can answer.
I believe it's the end of July. However, if the CEO, Brian Lancaster, I'm getting a thumbs up from governance, so it's the end of July, Councillor Space.
Thank you. Well, that's great. So it will be, look, I'm 100% in support of all of this. I think it's a fantastic initiative. And again, thanks to Councillor Sharp for raising this on Tuesday evening as urgent business. And it's obviously prompted a further issue to come for the Flemington Hub Debney's Park project and precinct. So he's hoping. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sorais. Any other councillor? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I support the motion, and certainly give the credit to Councillor Sharp for bringing it to us, as other councillors have already said. Anything that saves our ratepayers ultimately in the long term is going to be a great thing for our council and for our city. And 10 million minus the 10%, if it comes that way for the Flemington Community Centre, plus the what is it, 4.5 I think it was for the Fullerton Pavilion in Aberfeldy, is all going to, if we are fortunate enough to receive it, going to be a great bonus for our city, and certainly will benefit the ratepayers of Moonee Valley in the long term. It also gives us the opportunity, obviously, to do more with our dollars, and as Councillor Cusack mentioned, and as a great line that I always like using, getting a great bang for our buck. So no, right behind this one.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Any other? Councillor Sypek.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this is a wonderful opportunity for Moonee Valley to apply for extra funding. And I want to be very frank about this. We have a lot of projects that we could have put up for this funding. Unfortunately, we have to make the hard decisions. That's what we hear as councillors. We've had to make a choice, and the best possible choice for this council was the Flemington Hub. So I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm extremely pleased that we've gone and had a further look at what we could potentially put in grant-wise for this very important stimulus program that has been initiated by the government, and I have certainly got absolutely everything crossed that we are successful in at least one of these grants. Both will be absolutely amazing. Christmas on a stick, as Councillor Cusack said. But I just look forward to, I guess, seeing the result of our efforts. That's for sure. Just commenting on the mention of that Councillor Suffolk made about there being lots of other projects. I'm just feel that I need to validate that slightly. We've had conversations. I've had conversations with a couple of other clubs, and I think as a group, some of the clubs aren't sure about the processes involved in and around council and these applications and the decisions that we make. So I think it will be good to be able to touch base with those clubs and talk to them, frankly, about what we're putting forward tonight, I guess. There are a lot of requirements in this grant round, the stimulus program grant round, that do have to be complied with. Obviously, Flemington complies with, ticks all the boxes basically, as does JA Fullerton. As I said, certainly happy to see this progress, but I think it's important for us as a council group to also touch base with those sporting clubs that we just need to have a conversation with, because you know, there's so many needs and wants out there in the community, and certainly we have the hard decisions that we have to make on a fortnightly basis. But we support every club within our municipality, and I think that just needs to be reinforced, I suppose, and we could easily do that as a group. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. I think there's only one other councillor to go, Councillor Gatchamarici.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will not say too much. I'm conscious most others have covered already. I am incredibly excited by the opportunity for us to get some much needed funds towards the Flemington project. It's one that deserves to be looked after, and I think should be looked on favourably by government given the significance of that project. I think Fullerton is well overdue, so I look forward to them both being shined upon and being contributed to. And I think the real learning, not just in the last week, but over the last few months, is there have been multiple rounds of grants, state and federal, and there will continue to be going forward. And there are some real opportunities for us as a councillor group and as an organisation to really contribute to the conversation about how those grants are determined, the information that's used towards it, but also in terms of the projects that we have in our current long and short-term planning, how those would actually be considered if they're anywhere near ready or not, and to have a really open and honest conversation with community groups and clubs about how funding works for some of those. So I look forward to us having those conversations so that everyone can be on the same page and understand it. I think that's a real opportunity for us to ensure that for future rounds of grants, we really know what we can apply for, and we can apply for them correctly at the time with all the right boxes ticked, and with clubs that are able to apply for that funding then and there, so that we also hopefully don't have to do as many urgent business ones because we've already got it lined up. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gatchamarici. Now, I don't believe there was any opposition, so in that case, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Now, as we do have to go through our normal meeting procedures, there aren't any notices of motion, but I will ask if there's any urgent business. No. Any delegates' reports? No, there's no items of confidential, no confidential reports on tonight's agenda. So that concludes the business for tonight. Thank you for those who are watching on the internet, and I now declare this meeting closed. Good night.